slow it down. In parts of the Gulf of Eden, deep in the ocean, there is no mercy and nothing is spared. The ruthless Somali pirates challenge the strongest naval forces in the world. But who really has control over these dangerous waters? To find the answer, let's dive into some fierce encounters between ruthless sea pirates and Russian forces. And get ready because the unique action is about to begin. And don't worry because another country will be next. But before we start that, if you're new to our channel, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always be updated with videos like this. In May 2010, 11 Somali pirates vanished after the Russian Navy released them in the Indian Ocean. What really happened in their final hours was never officially revealed. However, there is evidence suggesting that there was a violent, intense killing, an incident that the Kremlin has never admitted to. The oceans became battlefields where despair and extreme hardship clashed with the billions of dollars of interests in global trade. The waters near the Horn of Africa and the Gulf of Aden saw almost daily encounters between armed criminals and naval forces who had no intention of showing mercy. The first of these stories began on May 5, 2010. The waters of the Gulf of Aden are usually calm, but they are full of unseen dangers and have witnessed an event that was a mix of courage, mystery, and hostage-taking. At dawn, the Russian oil tanker Moskva Universitet was sailing with 86,000 tons of crude oil bound for China, slowly making its way across the Indian Ocean. It was about 500 nautical miles from Somalia's coast when everything suddenly changed. In the distance, 3 dots appeared on the horizon, moving quickly and filled with a disturbing determination. And as the minutes passed, the view became much clearer. Those were small skiffs, the type pirates commonly used on that river. The crew knew the dangers of sailing in that zone, but the hope of avoiding the pirates pushed them to take the risk. The replacement was scared and knew what would happen next. Merchant ships use several methods to deter pirates. One example of this is the use of powerful water cannons that can knock a person off a small boat and security systems with nets to prevent boarding the ship. However, these are often not enough against pirates who are determined to attack. Despite the tanker's attempts to evade, fire flares, and give warnings, the pirates are truly determined. They already sense the damage as the inevitable approaches. A bigger threat is coming quickly and the gap is closing. In the end, the fast skiffs of the Somali pirates caught up with the massive Russian vessel. A ladder was lowered on the ship, and while some vessels have private security, the Moscow University did not. There was no way to escape, so the captain ordered the crew to carry out the protocol they had studied before leaving, hoping they would never have to use it. The crew shut down the ship's engines to prevent the pirates from heading to the coast of Somalia. If that happened, it would be much harder for help to arrive, especially since it would be entering enemy territory. The 23 crew members acted quickly and deliberately, heading to a reinforced room that was impossible to open from the outside. That's where they hid, bringing water, food, and most importantly, communication equipment. When the pirates boarded the deck, they tried to enter the room where the crew was, but they failed. Meanwhile, the captain communicated with the company, the Coast Guard, and the Russian Navy Command. And one of the toughest opponents of piracy was preparing to respond to the challenge. At that time, the Moscow Navy had 3 successful operations against Somali pirates in the Horn of Africa, and they were ready to respond to a new call of duty. However, the distressed ship was far away, so it would take a long journey for the Russian Navy, which meant the crew had to endure and hold out. While waiting, the pirates roamed around the entire ship, carrying their weapons, angry, desperate, and thinking of ways to break into the crew's room. They needed to take hostages so they would have leverage in the ransom negotiations. For more than 20 hours, the pirates had control of the Moscow University, and there was intense tension not only inside the ship but also among the Russian authorities, who were closely monitoring the situation from afar as the moment of truth was drawing near. But before we continue with what really happened in those final hours, make sure to subscribe and click the bell, because the next part has never been told in this much detail before. On May 6, Kremlin Navy's soldiers began preparations. They received crucial information about the tanker at night with help from an Australian aircraft in the area. Because of this, the destroyer Marshal Shipoknikov arrived at the exact coordinates to begin the attack plan. Marshal Shipoknikov is a war beast. It is 163 meters long, has a displacement of 6,200 tons, and a fierce arsenal that includes a 100mm Cannon Injal missile system, Kashin close-in weapons system, and the capability to carry two Ka-27 helicopters. It is a colossus designed to dominate the seas. The Marine infantry acted immediately, and at the first light of dawn, the operation began by sending a reconnaissance helicopter that flew from the Russian warship straight to Moscow University. The whirring of the rotor alerted the pirates, who greeted the helicopter with gunfire from automatic rifles. The Kremlin's men responded quickly and lethally. The aircraft retaliated, unleashing heavy machine gun fire, and one of the attackers was killed in a burst of blood and metal. On the radio, the tanker captain confirmed that they were safe and none of his crew were hurt. That information was crucial since the crew was safe, as the Russian Navy conducted a coordinated attack. With surgical military precision, the destroyer first fired 2 warning shots before directly opening fire against the Moscow University. The 100mm shells hit near the pirates' position, creating high bursts of water and pieces of metal, enough to intimidate and scare the pirates. The Special Operation Troop used the chaos to board the ship, and as the fast boats approached under the cover of artillery fire, the Russian Marines prepared their automatic weapons for the final assault. In a brief, intense firefight, the pirates surrendered one by one. Surrounded and outnumbered, they chose to lay down their arms and surrender before they could be showered with bullets. After disarming the attackers and confiscating their skiffs, the 23 crew members were freed without a single injury. The operation was over, or so many thought. Russia showed a swift and determined response. The operation was surgical, but what happened next sparked a major controversy that still exists to this day. According to the plan, the hostages were supposed to be brought to the ground to face trial. However, the decision of the Moscow forces was to leave the pirates on an inflatable boat more than 500 nautical miles from land. Even though they were given food and water, they had no navigation equipment at all, and they did not reach Somalia as they were lost at sea. And the Russian Ministry of Defense declared that they most likely perished in the open ocean. This is where the dark speculations began. Among them is the suspicion that the Navy killed the pirates first before leaving their bodies floating in the sea. Although the Somali government demanded an explanation and the Kremlin was accused of human rights violations, the exact details of what happened never surfaced, and the incident remains shrouded in deep mystery. And although it reached the Hijacking piracy in 2000, its threat to global maritime trade never completely disappeared. Regions such as the Gulf of Aden and the Horn of Africa remain extremely dangerous due to intense activity from criminal groups. Now, 11 years later, on October 26, 2021, the Gulf of Guinea once again became the stage for a demonstration of fear brought by the Russian Navy to African pirates. The Gulf of Guinea is known for rough waters and frequent criminals. And this time, the destroyer Vice Admiral Kulikov became the main player in the new operation. The Kremlin warship took action after receiving a distress call from the Panamanian container ship Mediterranean shipping company Lucia. Its previously peaceful voyage was suddenly interrupted by a fast boat that appeared on the horizon with an obvious and aggressive intent. The Gulf of Guinea is a dangerous area because of pirates, so ships should be extremely cautious. However, the warnings were ignored and the crew of Lucia sailed without an escort, making them an easy target. Fortunately for them, Vice Admiral Kulikov, a colossal ship of Russia's northern fleet, was patrolling those dangerous waters when it picked up the distress call. But there was one major issue: the weather was bad. A tropical storm was intensifying the waves and clouds, producing heavy rain and lightning that illuminated the raging sea. However, Russia responded very quickly. A Ka-27 helicopter carrying the Marine infantry team flew from the destroyer despite strong winds and low visibility. The helicopter braved the winds with strong determination towards the site of the attack so the soldiers could disembark onto the besieged ship. When the pirates saw the approaching Russo, they didn't hesitate. They immediately fled. They didn't want to share the fate of others like them or suffer what happened to the pirates left at sea. Everyone knows the Russian Navy shows no mercy. As the storm raged, the men descended from the helicopter. With precise movements and ready weapons, they secured the deck of the Mediterranean shipping company Lucia and freed the crew hiding in the engine compartment. The operation lasted less than 2 hours from the first distress call to the complete liberation of the ship. No shots were fired, no one was hurt, and only the deterrent force of a reputation forged in blood and steel was needed. And to ensure that such an incident would not happen again, a Moscow warship escorted the Lucia until it was out of the danger zone. During the trip, the destroyer's sensors detected other suspicious vessels that immediately changed direction when they recognized the intimidating silhouette of the Russian warship. On the same day, 15 nautical miles southwest of Bioko Island, the OSB Montet Tide was attacked and 3 crew members kidnapped. This just shows the pirates moved their operations to evade Vice Admiral Kulikov. During the week-long anti-piracy patrol, the Russian destroyer conducted multiple interceptions, provided escort to merchant vessels, and inspected suspicious boats. Its presence completely altered the pirates' movements and strategy in the region. The pirates learned to recognize the characteristics of the Odaloy-class destroyers in the area. Whenever these ships appeared, the pirates would immediately stop. The lesson from Moscow University spread across Africa's pirate network. And on one occasion, Vice Admiral Kulikov intercepted the communication of pirate groups, warning about the presence of Russia and ordering the cancellation of planned attacks. And it seemed they were afraid. The cost of maintaining the Russian patrol was small compared to the fact that it was effective. A single destroyer was able to do something that the multinational coalition had not achieved for many years. It instilled fear in the lives of the pirates, rather than simply assessing commercial risk. However, many questions still remain. How many more vanished at sea after the pirates met the Russian forces? Is this the new normal in fighting modern piracy? And is the world prepared to accept fully effective methods despite ethical concerns? The truth in the vast sea where there are no witnesses or cameras, and where life depends on strength and determination, the Russian Navy sent a message from Somalia to Guinea. Challenging the Kremlin's interest in international waters has definite consequences. But it doesn't end here. There are classified files that revealed shocking details about what really happened in the final hours aboard the Moscow University. Leaked Russian Navy testimony reveals the captured pirates were not just left behind. Instead, they were violently interrogated for hours on the deck of the destroyer. The Russian commandos were searching for information about pirate networks, the locations of their bases, methods of communication, and future plans. They used interrogation methods that clearly violated all international conventions. According to testimonies, one pirate revealed the location of a base camp on the coast of Somalia before he was released along with the others. And 24 hours after the incident at Moscow University, the Russian military drone bombed the exact coordinates in Somali territory. Russia officially denied any military action in the area, but unofficially, a pirate base was wiped out. Naval Dr. Alexander Rose, who was deployed in the operation, created psychological profiles of the pirates while conducting the interrogations. His recommendations to Captain Akhmarov were the deciding factor in what would be done with the captives. Rose studied Soviet psychological warfare methods and knew very well how to extract information and how to eliminate witnesses. When the pirates were put on the inflatable boat, they were not alone. They were carrying a tracking device that allowed the Russians to monitor their exact location. The classified navigation record shows that the Marshal Shapoknikov followed the signal in no time until it suddenly disappeared. In those final moments, according to testimonies, a Russian submarine surfaced near the inflatable boat. The pirates were brought aboard again, but this time, they vanished into the depths of the Indian Ocean. Lieutenant Colonel Oleg Kastanov, who was honored for his role in the operation, later developed an anti-piracy tactic manual that became the official doctrine of the Russian Navy. The manual includes specific protocols for the post-operational handling of captured criminal elements in international waters. The manual was quietly given to all Russian Navy units involved in anti-piracy operations. Its contents were never made public, but naval sources confirm that it details procedures to ensure that captured pirates will not pose a future threat to civilian navigation. In the case of the Gulf of Guinea, the operation of Vice Admiral Kulikov was just the beginning. In the weeks leading up to the rescue of the Mediterranean shipping company Lucia, the destroyer intercepted and processed several pirate groups without any of these contacts being officially reported. Satellite surveillance systems detected at least 3 pirate vessels that suddenly disappeared from radar after encountering Vice Admiral Kulikov. And international naval authorities reported these incidents as disappearances due to bad weather conditions. The effectiveness of these methods has inspired other national navies. Naval intelligence sources report that China quietly asked for a copy of the Russian anti-piracy tactic manual. Even countries that are traditional allies of the West are showing private interest in using tough measures against piracy. Russian destroyers still sail the world's oceans, and their reputation follows them like an iron shadow that scares even the bravest maritime predators. But now we know that reputation stands on secrets darker than the world ever imagined. Thank you for watching.